Hi, welcome back to the Weekly Why. This is a special Hanukkah edition of the Weekly Why. We're not going to do the parsha this week. We're going to talk about Hanukkah just very briefly, just for a couple minutes. Someone once asked me, they basically said, why is Hanukkah specifically celebrated? I mean, there are so many times in Jewish history when the Jewish people, faced a threat and they endured that threat and they survived. And why don't we make that a holiday? I mean, we had in Israel, we had so many miracles, so many miraculous, survivals. We had the War of Independence, 6-Day War. We had, the breakup of the Soviet Union. There were so many miracles which happened in the Holocaust. People survived. I mean, there's no shortage of things in the last, 2,000 years even of Jewish history which have truly been demonstrated the salvation of the Jewish people. So why Hanukkah specifically? One of the uniquenesses, what makes Hanukkah unique ultimately from all other attempts at killing the Jewish people is that officially there was no killing at all. There was no attempt at killing. Unlike every other instance, there was no attempt at the physical destruction of the Jews. The Greeks, the Assyrians, the Hellenists, their goal was not the destruction of the Jewish people's body, it was rather the assimilation and the conversion of the Jewish people. And so that is what ultimately Hanukkah is about. And there's a whole bunch of ideas, but basically the long and the short of it is that the reason that this is commemorated today, and the reason that Hanukkah is not, is not a biblical holiday, is a purely rabbinic holiday. The rabbi has decided, they decreed that Hanukkah should be observed every year forever. Why Hanukkah? Hanukkah is unique because, as I said, it was not a threat against the Jewish people's physicality. It was one against their spirituality. Now, why is this important for us to have as a holiday? Because it is so easy for us to see the threat on a physical level. Now, of course, we do have a holiday like Purim where that is the case, but we can talk about that another time. But basically, the reason Hanukkah is unique is because it was against spiritually, and it's not easy to see. It's easy for us to see, the president of Iran, threatening Israel. It's easy for us to see rockets flying into Israel. It's easy for us to see, how horrible the Holocaust was. It's visceral. It's obvious. It's plain. Nobody doubts the threat there. But when it comes to a spiritual threat, all of a sudden it becomes a little harder to see. It becomes a little bit more seemingly subjective. Is this really a threat at all? What's the difference here? And the point is that what the Maccabees were fighting against, they were not fighting against the goals or even the achievements of Greek culture. Maimonides, the great scholar and philosopher, Maimonides said that Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, he was so learned, he almost achieved the rank of prophet. Okay? So clearly then that Jewish theology, it's not opposed to everything Greek has to say with philosophy and sport and culture and politics. No. It had to do with the values. The values of the Hellenist Greeks basically said that physicality falls below materialism. Materialism and physicality is all there is in the universe. And so that's the reason, that's the point of Hanukkah, and that's the reason it was so important, is that the messages of the Maccabees, what they saw is that the threat against the Jewish people was that everything that they stood for would be destroyed. Now, what do they stand for? They stood for ultimately introducing ethics and morality under one God into the world. Now, if that was not the case, if the Jewish people were destroyed and that didn't exist, you would have 4 billion people today who would not have the ethics and morals based on Tanakh, based on the Jewish scriptures which they have. And so, if you want to give a comparison, the Jewish people are not better nor worse, but they are basically the pilot of the world. They're Or Lagoyim, the light unto nations. And so they're the pilot, they're flying the plane. And if the Greeks had succeeded in forcibly assimilating the Jews would basically have forgotten how to fly the plane, and they would have crashed the plane. And so obviously, with the analogy here, if the plane crashes, the only people, it's not just the Jews who'd be killed, it's everyone on board as well. And so this is, of course, what the Maccabees were fighting for. And so taking it back into the 21st century here, and the purpose, the relevance, the significance and importance of Hanukkah was that it is so easy for us to see physical threats when they're in front of us, but it's so hard for us to see spiritual threats. And the point of Hanukkah was supposed to be an eternal reminder that spiritual and physical threats both exist against us. Doesn't mean that people who represent the spiritual threats are bad, evil people. It just means that the threat against is opposed in terms of it's against what we stand for. And so the lesson for us is that these candles are supposed to be, when we have it on our Hanukkah, they're supposed to be lights out, they're supposed to be making a public statement. It's supposed to be out our window, because it's not just a message to us that, we survived. It's supposed to be, a message to us that we survived and that we still have that goal, we still have that message, and we still have that role to play in the world of bringing the light of morality to the nations. So that's the core message of Hanukkah for us today, 2011, and that's why it's still relevant today. Best wishes, Shabbat Shalom, God bless.